Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on shared mobility and new mobility servers. I hope you can all hear me clearly. My name is Elena Scherer. I'm a transport policy advisor at the GIZ, and I will guide you through this session today. This session will be recorded, and we will share the link and the presentations in our follow-up email with you within the next days. For those who don't know GIZ, we are a federal enterprise supporting the German government in achieving its objectives in the field of international cooperation for sustainable development. Today, I'm very glad that we have our two excellent speakers present, Ms. Samira Negem and Mr. Yang Li, who will share insights from the mobility startups they are working for. Samira will introduce us to Raya 7. Raya 7 is a culturally sensitive ride-sharing service combined with a social networking element. In 2016, it was recognized as the world's second best mobile startup at the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. And then Yang Li will give us an input on Mobike. Mobike is a fully free-floating bike sharing system headquartered in Beijing, China, that has meanwhile expanded its businesses beyond China's borders. And then after our experts' inputs, you will get the chance to share your questions and your opinions with us in the Q&A session. You can already type in your questions in the chat box, and we will collect them during the session and we'll bring them up then in the Q&A. So before I introduce our speakers in more detail, I would like to tell you a little bit about the background of this webinar, because it's a follow-up of a one-day event that we had conducted in Berlin last year in September. The GIZ jointly with the German Federal Environment Agency. So this is just again the agenda. And here are some impressions from the event. During the event, we launched the publication Reverse Innovation, Rethinking Urban Transport through Global Learning. That is available at the website of the Federal Environment Agency. You can also see a link here on this slide. On this event, both speakers of today had already given impressive inputs, and therefore we decided to give them the opportunity to share their experiences with a broader international audience. So that's a background for organizing this webinar. So the two examples that you will get to know today are a selection of 10 examples that we present in the brochure. So there are 10 different types of innovative urban mobility solutions in that brochure from different countries of origin. And besides presenting them, we're also analyzing their potential for transferring them to the German context. So if you're not familiar with the term reverse innovation, the term aims at describing new concepts or ideas that are adopted first in the developing world, then shaped by the local context, and that have the potential to inspire urban transport development also in developed economies like Germany. What we want to stress that we're not talking only about technological innovations, but there are different types of innovations that include also regulatory innovations, social innovations, and business model innovations, like in the case of Mobike. And you always cannot directly transfer those ideas from one country to another, but it's possible to learn about innovative aspects and link them to local needs. So it was very useful for us to see how those examples could also have a big impact in Germany. And why we're discussing so much about innovations, because we need a transformation of the transport sector to achieve the targets of international agendas like the Agenda 2030 or the New Urban Agenda and the Paris Agreement. And we think that shared mobility services are one of those concepts that could contribute to this transformation. So concepts like car sharing, carpooling, or bike sharing have experienced a rapid growth in the last years, and they can contribute to a reduction of the numbers of cars on the road, leading to a reduction of congestion, pollution, and noise in cities, and therefore improve life quality. So this is just an example of bike sharing schemes that have launched in the past years. Since 1995, you can see in the past years there has been a very rapid growth. And in some cities, we can also observe some critique on this development that you can see expressed in the media, but also is stated by some city officials. So we will soon proceed with the inputs from our experts, but I would just like to shortly give you some technical remarks for those who don't know the webinar software yet. So you should see this control panel as an attendee. You're muted from the beginning so that we have no sound interferences. Yeah, and during the webinar, as I said before, you can raise questions to our panelists at any time. We're collecting those questions in the chat function you see in the lower right corner, or you can see it here right to number 4. So now we can go on with our first speaker, Samira. Samira graduated in computer and system engineering and played diverse roles during her 8 years experiences in software industry. And after being awarded with the Valeo International Efficiency Award, Samira decided to use the diverse knowledge she gained to solve real problems faced by her own community, specifically the congestion that resulted in wasting 5 hours daily commuting to work and back home. So Samira decided to switch to social entrepreneurship and started Raya 7. And now I want to hand over to you, Samira, and you then will share with us how you developed the idea of Raya 7, and you will explain us further what a cultural sensitive carpooling is. So it seems there are some technical problems. Or Samira, could you share your screen?
Is the second most congested city worldwide. And for that, I used to spend 5 hours every day just to go to work and back home. On average, third of the productive time is wasted. So imagine if we have like,
sorry, Samira,
Cairo.
I think nobody can see your screen.
Okay, so what do you see now? Can you see it now?
Yeah, now we can see it. Thank you very much. Please restart from the beginning. I'm sorry for those technical problems.
No problems. Okay, so as I was mentioning, Cairo is the second most congested city worldwide. You can see from the picture how it looks like. And even the yellowish gray, you see, this is what we really see because of the pollution in Cairo. So third of the productive time of people's time is wasted. So in Egypt, we have, in Cairo specifically, we have 25 million inhabitants in the city. And these people, 1/3 of their time is wasted. So they don't use it in working, on producing, on learning. They're not even using it for spending time with families. So the problem on our context is so severe and so extreme. that the World Bank estimated that the annual cost of the lost productivity and efficiency of people is 13 billion US dollars a year, and this is 4% of the GDP in Egypt. Other than another 7 billion that is wasted on fuel subsidies that the government has to pay to support the usage of fuel in Egypt, because it will be very expensive without fuel subsidies. People are using their cars because the public transportation is overcrowded. So the bus designed to carry 10 people is actually carrying 36. So it's extremely crowded. It's not convenient, not comfortable. And other than that, for women, it's not safe. So imagine I come from a country where 99% of women reported harassment. So imagine what could happen in such a bus. And on the other hand, there are actually 20 million seats are moving all around Cairo that are empty. As per the statistics by the government, 70% of people are moving their cars with only one, one driver and one passenger, or only the driver with 3 seats empty. So there is a huge potential for sharing here. And our main idea was to use these empty seats to solve multiple problems. The first one, we want the females to have safe transportation and affordable option. She doesn't have to be squeezed in that bus, so she can use one of these seats. This is one point. The second, we wanted to help the car owners save money on fuel expenses and share the rides to work or to the university or to whatever place they are going. Instead of each one taking their own car, they share their cars and go in one car, and hence they save their money, and at the same time they save the environment. So basically, carpooling is not a new idea. It's an idea that has been there for years, specifically in Europe, for example. But it has not had this strong adoption in developing countries, and even in USA, for multiple reasons. The main reason is safety. It's not safe that you just ride with a stranger because he's going from point A to point B and you're going the same trip. So it's not safe just to ride with a stranger. The second problem is punctuality. In our case, we use carpooling inside the city, so it's urban carpooling. It's not, so we need to move actually from one point in Cairo to another point in Cairo. Maybe people in Europe, they don't face the same problem because you have a very good transportation options. But in many other places in the world, we don't have transportation options, so we need even the carpooling to move inside the city. So if I'm gonna use carpooling for moving inside the city, maybe I have a work meeting, I have an important appointment that I don't want to miss, so I need to be able to depend on this carpooling option as much as I would depend on any other transportation option. The third problem, and this is a bit related more to our cultural context in the MENA region, where dealing with money is a bit sensitive. So for example, if I am a passenger and I'm going from point A to point B, and I'm riding with a driver or with a car owner, and he works at the same company or a near company, and he is picking me up. If at the end of the trip I give him money, he will completely refuse and say, no, you cannot give me money, I was going there anyway. And why is that? Because in our culture, generosity is something that is very important. So people usually, they don't want to take a financial reward for something that was very easy for them to do. So in case of carpooling, he was going there anyway. So for him, it's shameful if he took money from me, and socially this will make him look like a greedy person or someone who's a needy person. So in both cases, it's not a good thing from his perspective. So we had to find the workaround of incentivizing people to carpool, because if they don't have any incentive, they will not carpool. So we needed to give another incentive to the car owner. So these were like the challenges we faced when developing the concept itself. So for that, we decided to build a community carpooling platform that is completely built around communities. I will explain this later. Just a small note, our app won this award as mentioned by Elena, but let's keep going to the next slide. So the basic idea is we build the app to work differently from one person to another. So for example, if I would use the app would show me only recommendations of people I could trust. So we basically built on both the offline social networks and the online social networks. So for example, when I use the app, I say I work in Vodafone, for example, and I used to go to this university, and I live in this area. So based on this information and on my social profiles on the social media, the app connects me to people I would trust to ride with, and no harm will be done, because we're either working at the same company, or we're friends on Facebook, or we went to the same university and we have multiple friends in common. So it's mainly a trust algorithm that we've developed to make sure that people, when they ride with each other, we only suggest people who they would trust and enjoy the ride to work or to the university with. And from a logistics point of view, it works like a bit of when people, when they before they want to go to work, for example, tomorrow, they have to say, I'm moving from this place to this place, and the app shows who are from their colleagues or trusted social network is around, and connects them together so that they can go to the same trip, while saving money on fuel and car expenses. So this is
Samira, we lost you again at the value and impact slide, the sound. So I will give Samira a few seconds. It seems that the connection in Egypt is currently not that perfect.
so we compete
Yeah,
with
you're back.
all transportation.
Samira, can you start with the value and impact slide from the beginning? Because we missed you for a few seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. I sorry for the connection, but we're in Egypt, so you can expect that. Um,
Yes.
so back to the value and impact, I was mentioning that the car owners get to save a lot of money from switching roles, and everyone, each instead of each one paying for the expenses by themselves, they get to save the money by sharing. And the expenses can easily be cut to one quarter of the annual expenses they used to pay. And I mentioned that these numbers are in Egyptian pounds, so they might not be exact or applicable from where you are, but you get the idea. And from the perspective of the passenger or the person who does not own a car, he gets to have a very competitive option, because in our case, Roy is very affordable because he only gets to share the cost of the fuel. So the passenger to use our app, he has to pay the cost of the fuel for this trip. So that makes it very competitive against any other option. Except maybe the public transportation is of course much cheaper, but then you're not getting the fuel for free. you get the problems with the safety that we face. Like the Egyptian pounds, but you get the idea. And for the pointing system, so I mentioned that we have this cultural issue when it comes to this. So for that, we have this pointing system to solve this cultural issue. The goal is we want to highlight that the people are sharing expenses. So we highlight that there is no driver and passenger. It's not like Uber, for example. It's a community building on the resources they have by sharing. And that's what we're doing. So basically, there is no direct financial transaction. The pointing system works by a virtual points. It's our own virtual currency. You cannot buy with it anything, so it's not like Bitcoin, for example, but it's pointing system where you can use in our app. So whenever I'm driving, I'm getting more points. Whenever I'm riding, I get to pay points. So the driver, if the driver or the car owner picks me up for a trip that is 10 kilometers, they get 10 then they get 10 points. If they drive two people for a trip of 10 kilometers, they get 20 points, and then they accumulate these points, and then they exchange these points for fuel cards or money or mobile credits and whatever. And for the passengers who do not have a car, they have to buy these points with money, as mentioned in the previous slide, and then we use this money to subsidize the car owners, but without direct financial transaction. And also, I wanted to mention that last year in Egypt, we had the fuel prices doubled. So last year was a really bad year in Egypt. We had two very bad events. The first one, we had our currency devaluated to 45% of its value. So, for example, $1 was equal to £7 now, Egyptian pounds, and now $1 is equal to 18 Egyptian pounds. So you can imagine that everything became very expensive in Egypt. Cars are very expensive, laptops are very expensive, mobile phones, everything is very expensive because we import most of our goods. And at the same time, the fuel prices doubled. So it was a really bad year in Egypt when it comes to economy. But at this stressful time, we were very proud because the CIB, which is the biggest bank in Egypt, made a press release about our collaboration with them to bringing their employees to carpool and save on their car expenses every day, because we have this kind of deal with the CIB to provide the service for all their employees. And we were very proud that at this hard time in Egypt, someone or some people are having access to such a platform to be able to save on their car expenses in this such a bad economy time that we have. We mainly focus right now in dealing with organizations. So we provide the services for companies like the CIB and other, for example, universities, so certain organizations. And for them, we provide other values than the benefit that the individuals have for saving money. And this starts with the organization saving a lot of money from the parking lots, and they are able to provide more transportation options for their employees, and then hence they are having a lower turnover rate, and their employees get to be more connected because they spend these 3 hours every day connecting with each other instead of each one arriving to work stressful. Now everyone is arriving energized and happy. Now our platform, there are like 20,000 people having access from different organizations. Some of them are employees, some of them are students, and they are mainly using it for everyday commute, not for travel between one city to another. And what we want is we want to be able to solve this problem for everyone. Traffic issue or the mobility is in population all over the world. So we're aiming to be able to solve this problem to more people in Cairo and more people outside Egypt as well. And we find that this is applicable for many other cities with the same challenges: no good public transport, very crowded. The government is not able to solve the basic needs related to mobility for their citizens. So this is where we can have a more impact, and this is where we want to be. I was saying that this is where we want to go and in the next years. And we would love that if any one of you would like to bring Royah for their country, for their organization, or want to take part in solving this traffic issue, and at the same time providing people some happiness while they're commuting to work or to the university, I would invite them to join us in the ride. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samira. I think it's not that bad that we miss some words in between sometimes. It naturally happens if we are using these new softwares and the internet maybe is not working perfectly in Egypt. But anyhow, I think we got the idea very well, and we have collected some questions to you already that we will bring up later, but I would now like to hand over to Yang Li. Yang Li is currently Mobike's commercial director looking after growth and expansion. So he's a director in the UK, and previously he was helping to scale up startups in last mile deliveries such as Deliveroo, Just Eat, and Amazon. So I'll yeah. So Yang Li, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Elena, and thank you for having me here today. It's lovely to be able to share the journey that Mobike has been on in the last 20 months since we've started, and I hope this gives everyone a very brief idea of what Mobike is and what Mobike is going in the near future. And so, without going further, I would like to just very much say that Mobike is a dockless bike share company, and we are the world's first smart dockless bike share company in that we put a lot of technology in our bikes that makes the user experience a lot better than what you would traditionally associate a bike share scheme to be. So to very much summarize it, it's a very much a three-step process to use our bikes. You download our app, and then you find our bike, because every bike has a GPS and a SIM card in it, and you scan the QR code on the bike, or you can input the reference number that is printed on the bike, and then the bike automatically unlocks. And then once you complete your journey, you simply park the bike in a safe location and lock it. And once you lock it, the bike all of a sudden becomes automatically available for the next user to discover on a bike. And all of this easy app-based smart bike technology was created from a very simple vision. Now, our co-founder, Huiwei, is not a business person by trade. She doesn't have an MBA. In fact, she was an automotive journalist by trade. But there was one part of her life that she absolutely did not like, and she did not like her commute. She could not get on buses. The subway was very full, and she didn't want to drive her car because parking was very expensive and it wasn't good for the environment because she was a single occupancy in the car. And so she brought her friends together to create Mobike here, and here we are today. And as of this moment today, we now have 200 million global users, we now operate 7.5 million mobikes across the world, and we complete 30 million journeys a day. To give you some perspective of 30 million journeys, that is 3 times the size of Uber. So on a daily basis, we are now transporting 3 times as many people. And we are now in 220 cities. I put a plus sign there simply because we launch at such a fast pace. Every time I say a number, it's incorrect. But just in the last week, we have launched in Thailand, and then we launched in Paris as well. And so across all of this, we are constantly generating data. As I said, we are unique in the sense that our bikes are the only ones in the world that operate a Bluetooth chip, a GPS module, and also a SIM card that is constantly reporting the bikes. And in order for us to use that, we're tracking that bike data and using it to improve our operations. Where are there hotspots? Where is the demand coming from? And that is collecting over 20 terabytes a day. That is continually improving our machine learning and AI that's helping us to redistribute our bikes. And of course, none of this would happen without our phenomenal investors that we've brought along with our journey. We've raised over $1 billion US so far, with some investors such as Hill House Capital, Sequoia China, and a lot of industry partners such as Foxconn as well. And so, what is the point of dogless bike share? I had this question a lot. We are a very new industry, and people always say to me, well, what's the improvement? Is there any tangible improvement of being able to have a free floating system, of being able to track where the bikes are, and be able to use a smartphone to unlock very seamlessly? Well, here's a very simple answer to it. Shanghai and London, throughout the years previously had very similar amounts of bike share rides in a month, and all of a sudden, when Mobike launched in Shanghai, our very first city, it increased dramatically, and it never looked back. And it's because of this change in mentality and change of how users see our product that we are able to complete 30 million journeys a day. And the reason, another metric that was very interesting is if we look at London's bike share scheme. It's a traditional dog scheme. It's a very successful one. It's very popular. It completes around 2 to 3 journeys per day per bike, and perhaps one of the reasons is it's seen as very much a commuting tool. There is a morning rush hour usage and there's an evening rush hour usage, but in between, the usage is relatively low. For us, when we launched in Manchester, we saw a peak of 9 rides per day per bike, and we're seeing also on average 4 or 5 rides per day per bike, even when it's raining or it's cold or it's poor weather. And the reason for that is that when the bikes are in front of you on the street and it's available and it's seamless, you're now making journeys that you would not have imagined doing before. To give a very simple anecdote, our shortest journey by a user is 26 seconds in Manchester. They cycle from one end of the road to the other end of the road because our scheme is seamless. It's right in front of them. It's easy, and they trust it, and they know every time they unlock a mobike, they can rely on it to get them to the destination quickly. And so what do we talk about next is, give me a second, my screen has frozen. So I'd like to talk about, we're very much here to support easy new way to making sure people's mobilities are satisfied. But on top of that, if we can contribute positively to the environment, then we absolutely want to do everything we can. And in the last year of operations, our users have cycled a cumulative level of 5.6 billion kilometers, which is the equivalent of 4.4 million tons of CO2. And we're very proud of the fact that we're reducing the amounts of CO2 that would have been put out if they weren't using our bicycles. And we recently did a survey to our users where we found out that 55% of mobike users self-reported a reduction in car usage. And I come from a social science background, and so I know that this can mean that this user took one less taxi journey, or they took one less supermarket trip by their car, or it can mean that they've sold their car and replaced their car by using public transport and mobile completely. And we've seen both extremes when we were talking to our users, and we're very proud of that. And it's because of this reason that we're supporting our, the environment and making sure that we have a positive impact, that in December last year we were announced by UNEP to be one of the global champions of the environment. We're one of the only companies to do so because of our contributions to the environment. And so we've talked thus far about our service, how phenomenally we've grown, and how excited that we are. We're helping users change how they move around in a city. I'd like to just spend a moment on our bike itself. Our bike is not an off-the-shelf bike. You cannot buy our bike from a store or a manufacturer. We have our own R&D team, we own our own factories, and we design our bikes to be used for bike share from day one. For example, we don't have traditional spokes on our wheel. It's cast aluminium and magnesium alloy, so that if there is a bump or an accident, the wheels don't buckle, the wheels are still perfectly usable. The tires themselves are slash-proof, airless, and they have a proprietary coating developed by Dow Chemical just for mobike to have a low rolling resistance. On top of that, our bikes are again made out of aluminium, and it's crankshaft instead of a chain, so that the chain doesn't fall off. There's nothing to catch your trouser leg or your dress on. It's absolutely designed for bike share from day one. And of course, as I touched upon at the very beginning, our bikes also are very smart in that they are the only bike share bike in the world to have both three things: the Bluetooth, the GPS chip, and a SIM card in it, which means that it's constantly communicating to our back end. And in fact, we consider ourselves more towards a data company, an IoT company, than a true mobility company, because we are collecting data continuously from 7.5 million bikes on a daily basis. And so all of this together, our service, our bike design itself, and our technology enables us to really become smarter every day. Our bikes are improving their unlock rate because they are receiving OTA, over-the-air software updates. All of that data is feeding into our AI platform, into our making sure that our machine learning knows that where is the demand going, where is the high levels of usage, what times, and what intervention we need to do. And lastly, Mobike is exploring a new option of smart parking, where we can geofence and we can install low amount of infrastructure to be able to end journeys as soon as a user enters the area. For example, we're able to track a user when they enter a dedicated parking zone, so that we can nudge our users to be conscientious users and be able to induce for other users to be sharing our bikes. And so overall, I hope that is a really quick understanding of what Mobike is and where we're going in the future. We're very proud of what we've achieved so far, and happy to take any questions at the end. So from here, I'd like to pass back to Elena.
Thank you very much, Yang Li, for those impressive numbers that you can deliver by Mobike. I think it's very interesting that behind both ideas we have a personal story of people that were suffering in their commutes. That's a very interesting background for both. So we have now plenty of time, almost 30 minutes for our Q&A session. We have already collected several questions. So I would like to hand over to my colleague Levin Toprak, who will present himself shortly, and then we'll share the questions that he has collected in the last minutes. He will share with us. So thank you very much, Levent.
Thank you very much, Elena, for your introduction, and thank you, Samir and Yang Li, for your interesting inputs. Now it's time for some questions from our attendees. I'm really looking forward to it. But first, let me introduce myself very shortly. My name is Levin Toprak. I'm a transport policy advisor at GIZ Sustainable Urban Transport Project, SUTP, with a focus on mobility innovations. I will guide you through this question and answer session. And I'm very glad because there are many interesting questions for you, Samir and Yang Li. Thanks to all attendees. Our first question is for you, Samira. Let me take a look and give you this question. Samira, Kiarash Gasemlu is asking, how do you planning to solve trusting problem of pop-in sharing?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect. So currently what we're doing, but this is like because we're working in a certain scale, this will change when we have a larger scale. So right now we're only working with certain organizations, and we use the data from the organizations and the social networks to be able to determine using analytics if this person is trustworthy for the other person or not. So, for example, for one, if I would use the app, and I said I need a pickup from point A to point B, the application will look for everyone who's living in point A and usually moving to point B, and filter them out by a trust score that we built based on an algorithm working or merging multiple inputs. So one of these inputs are related to the social networks, and the other input is related to the offline network. So for example, if the other person is working at the same company as I am in, for sure the application would recommend this to each other. If the other person is not working at the same company, but is working to a similar company, and a similar company, this is something that our algorithm understands based on a certain inputs that we gave at the beginning, and then these inputs develop over time. So for example, if I work in Microsoft, for example, and the other person works for Intel, so these are two different companies, but in the same sector, and the employees of one company are a bit similar to the employees of another company. So in that case, the algorithm would as well suggest for this person to write with the other person. Um, and what if the other person is not working at all, for example, but the other person from the data of the social networks, I have two friends in common and five LinkedIn connections in common. So in that case, the application would recommend. So it's like it's a trust score calculated based on different criteria, and then if this criteria is okay and this is okay and this is not okay, but overall the score is above a certain threshold, we suggest these two other people to each other. And then there's also some preferences the user would add. So the preferences are, for example, if I'm female and I don't want to ride with males at all, I can put this on. And maybe I don't like smoking, so I don't want to ride with someone who smokes. This is another input to the matching algorithm. And then there's the rating, the previous rating that the other person had from their previous trip. So we combine all of this to be able to suggest this person to the other person or not. I hope this makes it clear.
Thank you, Samira. Great insights. I would like to continue with you now, Yang Li. I would try to change the questions to you, Samira and Yang Li, and now I would like to continue with you, Yang Li.
Sure.
Amien van der Merwe is asking from Cape Town, I think. They are interested in your concept of Mobike in Cape Town, and the question is, how does Mobike decide whether to launch in a new city?
Yeah, so there's a couple of metrics internally. So we have an international launch team, and our sole job is to identify and engage with local governments and to explore the possibility of launching a Mobike, a dockless bike share scheme. Mobike makes it a point that we never, out of the over 200 cities that we've launched in, that we never launch without full government approval. In a lot of cities and a lot of countries, there's no legislation stopping Mobike from simply deploying the bikes tomorrow. but we want to be working with the government collaboratively to make sure that we are deploying the bikes in the right spots, in the right areas, in the right way, to make sure that we are successful in day one. And so the truth is, we are talking to hundreds of cities at the moment. We've been in talks with hundreds of cities for months now, and there is a very healthy pipeline about the cities we're launching, and we are always growing our international team bigger and bigger by the day so that we can launch faster. I have no doubt that we will be launching in South Africa in this coming year, hopefully, because we are in some great talks with both Cape Town and other big cities in South Africa.
Thanks. Thank you for your response, Yang Li. Thanks. Now again, Samira, there's a lot of interesting questions for you, but I would continue with Frank Summer. The question is, could you, or your explanation, or the wish is, could you please tell us more about which stratum of the society is mostly using RIA 7? Okay, I think there are some technical problems. I will try to unmute Samira again.
Hello?
Okay. Yes, Samira, we can hear you.
So mainly there are like two segments that are using the app mostly. The young professionals. So either those who have a car or those who do not have a car, but they are like building their careers and they want to earn more money to build also their like new lives, for example, new weds, people like getting married soon, all of these people who are like consciously saving money, and students as well in private universities. Because most of the private universities are located outside, like on the borders of Cairo. So there is no good transportation option, and not all of them are reached the eligible age to buy or to have a car, a driving license, I mean. So these are like the two segments that are using the app the most.
Thank you, Samira. I would continue with you again, and there's a lot of questions about security for women. And here's some from Teresa Kerber. Is there a sort of personality check in order to prevent possible crimes in order to women?
So yes, we have a personality check, but it's in a way automated. That's why we allow only certain people to have access to our platform. So basically, anyone working in a reputable private organization or university. So people have to verify their emails. So for example, I have to verify my email. So if I work in IBM, I have to write samira.negma@ibm.com, and then a verification email is sent to my work email to verify I'm working in this place. And then we have, because of this, we have two good benefits. The first one is already these organizations have done already all the checks on their employees. And we're sure 100% that they've done all the checks on their employees. So we don't have to redo the checks. This is the first benefit we have from using this automatic verification system. The second benefit, the other person, either it's a woman or even a guy, they get a full information about this person, and all of these information is verified. So for example, if my information says I work in IBM and I graduated from German University in Cairo, so these information are verified via automatic identity verification. So the other person can decide if this person he wants to.
Okay, I think we have the same technical problem. Yes, Samira. Okay, let's continue with the question for you, Yang Li. We can move later on to Samira again for this question to continue her answer. It's about your data, Yang Li. What happens with the data?
Sure. So I guess that's a very broad question. On the consumer side, facing we don't have the ability, we purposely have not built the ability to track a user's journey live. We can only track the bike. So once a journey has been completed, we're able to see the history of a bike's journey, so which coordinates are moved from to where. And on top of that, we also choose, in order to make the experience very seamless, we also don't collect much of the user's data in the first place. In order to become a mobile user, we need your telephone number, and that is it. We don't collect your address, we don't collect your name, we don't collect your email address, and it's part of our journey to be very seamless. So when you see a bike, you can sign up very quickly and you can use it. We always joke internally that our best marketing tool is our bike itself. Once you see the orange bike and it's on the street, you're curious and you sign up. And lastly, it's very important. There's a couple of things that we are looking at here at Mobike. One is implemented already, and one is about to be implemented. Number one is all of our data is AES 256 encrypted to make sure that we have the utmost levels of this information security. And of course, as we need to, Mobike will be compliant to GDPR across Europe.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Now we want to try to reach again Samira. Samira, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the question was about the security for women. Maybe you can continue there.
Okay, I'm not sure what have you heard already, but I was saying that we have mainly 3 layers of security where women can benefit from. The first one, anyone who's using our platform has to put an eligible work email address or university email address. So for example, if I put my work email address as samira@ibm.com, for example, the application sends me a verification code to make sure that I really work there by sending a verification email, and I have to reply with a code. So for that, the first layer is we use the verification that is already being done by the companies themselves. So any company in Egypt, before they hire someone, by law, they have to do certain types of checks. So we know for sure that these companies already have done these kind of checks on these people. So that's the first layer. The second layer is the trust algorithm, and the trust algorithm includes if the woman wants to ride with other male riders or not, and also includes the rating and includes the whole preferences. So that's the second layer of security we have. The third layer is you always have a choice. So either you are a car owner or you're a passenger looking for a ride. In both cases, you have a visibility and a transparent profile about the other person. What's his name, where do he work, what's his age, does he smoke or not, the number of trips he's done before, the rating he has, all of transparent information, and based on it you can decide if you want to ride with him or not. So you have a choice in selecting your co-rider. Either you have a car owner, and you're inviting people to join you, or you are a passenger looking for car owners. In both cases you have a say. So these are the 3 layers we have.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. It's for you again, Yang Li. It's from Frank Summer. Mr. Frank Summer is asking you, it's very interesting. How many people do you employ in order to maintain the bikes and transport them back to the spots where they are mostly needed?
Sure. So it's a really interesting question. It's a question that I try and answer with our operations teams on a monthly basis, because it helps with budgeting, it helps with planning our future requirements and recruitment. But the honest answer is every city is different. So some cities, so essentially we have a few types of redistribution employees. So we have on-street wardens. So these officers walk around, they educate users, they support, and they maybe pick up a bike that has been blown over by the wind. Then we have what we call cargo bikes, so people on electric assisted tricycles or cargo bikes or a tricycle with a trailer, and they can redistribute the bikes from areas of the outskirts back into the city center where there's high demand, and these are electric assisted bicycles. And then we go up a stage where we have vans, so people who use Euro 6 compliant vans, and in some areas we're testing electric vans to redistribute a larger number of bikes, or to deploy a larger number of bikes across the city. And so very much is a blend. If you take bigger cities where they have to cover a lot of range, then it's a very local most of the people is 50% very local wardens and officers that are on the street walking around, and then the other half is vans, because otherwise they have to cover too many kilometers. On the other side, if you look at a very small town like Oxford, which we operate in, we almost entirely use electric assisted tricycles. We don't use any vans because the city is very condensed, and most people cycle around the city center, and only on a rare occasion does a bike go out of the city. And so it very much depends on the city and the demographic. No matter what we prepare for, sometimes users surprise us and how to use our bikes, and it's always part of the fun to learn and to adapt our operations. And when you say where's the hotspots, well, there's always a high level demand in major transport hubs, so train stations, bus stations, big car parks, but also for Mobike, it's relatively consistent on where there is demand. If you put a bike outside an office, outside a restaurant or a cafe, the chances are it'll be used. It's not, as I said in our presentation, we're not seen as a commuter tool, so we don't rely on having our demand purely on transit stations. We rely on users using our bikes throughout the middle of the day. A walk that may have taken you 15-20 minutes before now takes you 5 to 10 minutes on a bicycle, and because it's so seamless, then people use it all of a sudden. So our hotspots are almost everywhere in the city.
Great, very interesting, Yang Li. Thank you. Okay, we have one more question for you, Samira, again. And again, very interesting, a lot of interesting questions, but it's about finance. How does Raya finance itself?
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, Samira.
Okay, great. So mainly financing, we have three sources. The first one is with B2B contracts. So we do this kind of contracts with organizations where the company pays us to have a platform that is branded with their brand and like with some certain activities related to their employees. So we have this B2B as a source of revenue. The second is for the B2C. People are using the app without their organization support. We take a transaction cut from the points that are moving between the car owners and the passengers. The third revenue stream that we have is from advertising, not advertising as in ads, but as I mentioned, we have our own virtual currency where people use it either to redeem their points into cash or into other services. So from the other services, we have mobile credit and we have fuel cards. So we take money from the people we make their services available on our app. So for example, we have a partnership with Total, the fuel station, for people to redeem their credits into credit on Total cards like fuel.
Thank you, Samira. Yang Li, again, a question for you. It's from Enrico Hove. I'm reading out. Mr. Li, could you provide us some more insights in the Magic Cube approach of Mobike? How does the AI work? How does that give you an advantage against your competitors?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to describe our Magic Cube is it's a team that constantly experiments. We know that we collect a lot of data, and ultimately, if you're using AI, data is king. You need to be able to have a long-term amounts of data that is continually flowing in order to improve your operations. So far, some of the things that I've seen Magic Cube really contribute to is able to help us make decisions about shift patterns for our employees to make sure when is there going to be an increase in demand, and so that we may need to redistribute more or intervene with our bikes more. What is the most efficient route for our mechanics to try and perform on-street maintenance if we need to, and ultimately it makes sure that we more efficiently deploy our resources. And there is no hiding about this. We are my company is in a business of high volume, low margin business, and so every small efficiency gain that we can get ultimately helps us sustain our business, and we can reinvest all of our profits back into making sure that we provide a service our users expect and deserve. I guess the biggest competitive edge that we have from Magic Cube is the fact that we are the only company that has been running and collecting such amounts of data and processing such amount of data from day one. There are other competitors in this space, but they haven't been running and collecting data from day one. And so ultimately, you can put a GPS on your bike tomorrow, but you only start collecting your data from tomorrow, and you only start processing your data from tomorrow. We have been doing for the last 20 months. We've done a lot of experiments that have gone nowhere, but actually some of the experiments that we've done with the AI team and the data team has been influencing our daily operations about the construction of the bike, and every aspect we're trying to make marginal increases of efficiency throughout our company. And ultimately, in this business, this is going to give us a competitive edge across all of our other competitors.
Okay, great. I want to continue with you, Yang Li.
Sure.
Want to stay by you. Are you looking at introducing e-bikes in the fleet? What is your current projection for the economic viability of e-bikes? Nikola Stalewski is asking.
Sure. So I think e-bikes is the future. I think it gives people who are apprehensive about using a bicycle because they felt it was physically tiring, a chance for them to try a really easy ride, and they can go wherever they want to go and enjoy the freedoms of bicycling. I think absolutely Mobike will be putting trials out within 2018 to start exploring e-bikes. The honest answer is I don't know when full rollout of e-bikes will begin, because I foresee currently there are challenges that we need to address first. So currently, if you're using a traditional bicycle, including Mobike or your own bicycle, you may be doing a 1 to 5 kilometer journey on average. It's a very much a first and last mile mobility tool. But if you start introducing electric bikes, then that journey could be extended from 5 to 10 kilometers, if not more. And so then we need to rethink about how our operations model, how we educate our users, and how do we maintain that there's a good amount of availability in the city that we launch in, because you're suddenly extending the range of people's usage, which is a good thing. But we need to address those operational issues and have a strategy first before we launch into it. There are other dockless operators, I'm sure, who are rushing to go into e-bikes, but I don't believe anyone has the right answer yet. And I'd rather provide a good holistic user experience to Mobike users rather than just buying a e-bike from an existing OEM or a factory and painting it orange and putting it onto the street, because I think that creates a poor user experience. And on top of that, what about the pollution aspects of how often do you replace the batteries? About we are dockless. You can't recharge the batteries when it's not being used. So we have to have an increased levels of intervention. If we are able to have a perfect solution, and I've seen internally, I've told a lot of ideas about how we're going to implement this, change our intervention operation strategy to accommodate e-bikes, and I'm confident that we will find a solution. I don't believe that any dockless operator currently has a perfect solution, but if anyone's going to find it, it's through Mobike's experience and our data, and of course using our AI to test a lot of different models, which gives us again another clear-cut advantage.
Great, thank you, Yang Li. It was the last question for you, and now the last question for you, Samira. It's more or less an explanation about the culturally sensitive coupling. What did you mean with culturally sensitive coupling? Would you please summarize this again for us? Okay. Samira, we lost Samira again. So now, Samira, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I heard your question.
Okay, great.
Okay, so mainly what happened in Egypt with this huge amount of cars and congestion we have, there has been more or less 15 carpooling apps that tried to solve this problem and encourage people to carpool. But what they have basically done is they copycat the carpooling apps that are used in Europe, for example, BlaBlaCar and carpooling.com before, and they just copied it and they assumed it's gonna work. So the carpooling as we used to know it is a bit it's not user-centered. So it's basically connects people moving from the same direction to the same direction. So what we've basically done is we merged the trust and the usage of the network from social networks with the sharing economy of transportation. To give you an example, if you're using your Facebook, for example, and opening your homepage, in the homepage you will find only posts that are relevant to you. Either you live in Cambodia or you live in Egypt or you live in UK or USA or wherever you live, you will always find content related to you. Why? Because Facebook is working based on networks, so it helps you connect to people that are similar to you, so that you can enjoy your experience using Facebook. The same with our app, Rayah. By the way, Rayah is an Arabic name for the English word going, so it's a translation of going. So basically, when you use the app, you always find people that are relevant to you. So this is one point, how we are more of like culturally sensitive. And the other point was the handling of the pointing system that we had to come with to cater for the cultures where they have this issue with cash payments. So basically, these are like the 2 points that because of them we say that we're culturally sensitive, because this was like our positioning when we first started in Egypt, because there has been 15 other carpooling apps that couldn't make it. That's all.
Okay, great. Very insightful. Yes, thanks a lot to all of our participants for the questions and comments to our experts. Samira, Yang Li, thank you again for your insightful answers. And then I would like to hand over to Elena again for our closing session.
Yeah, thank you also from my side, and thank you also for Levent for guiding us through the Q&A session. So I hope you enjoyed the webinar. If yes, I have good news, because there is another webinar coming up soon on February 22. It will be on fuel pricing policies, and this webinar is a series, is a part of a webinar series on methodologies of the transport volume of the baseline compendium. It is organized by the GIZ project Advancing Transport Climate Strategies and the UNFCCC Secretariat that have also published this publication that you see here, the baseline compendium, jointly. And this document is also available for download. You find the link on the slide. And there are some other recommended readings for you on the topic we talked about today, about car sharing, and we talked about carpooling, but we have material about car sharing and bike sharing available. And coming up soon, we will have also an innovation screening and monitoring for cities. And if you're interested in more information about that, you can contact Levent. And if you're interested in our GIZ transport and mobility activities in general. You can follow all those links, and you will also find the presentation of today and the recording very soon at the Capsuit page, which is our capacity building platform. So the link for the download will be shared with you in a follow-up email within the next week. Thank you very much. And if you have any further questions following up this webinar, please don't hesitate to contact us. Here is our email addresses of Levent and me. Have a good day, and thank you. Bye-bye.